Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a really incredible story today. It's all about resilience, sheer grit, and literally rising from the ashes. We're talking about the inspiring tale of Thunder. Now, Thunder was this young, incredibly graceful horse with basically one massive driving ambition: winning the prestigious Grand Valley horse race. Every single morning, he'd be out there racing across the green hills of his valley, just full of promise. He had the speed, he had the talent, and honestly, everyone around him just knew he was destined to be a champion. The guy was completely on top of the world.
But before we get into what actually happened to Thunder, I want you to ask yourself something. What does it take to rebuild yourself when literally everyone around you says you're finished? It's a heavy question, right? Because look, this isn't just some story about a horse. It's an explainer on human psychology. It's about how we overcome the seemingly impossible hurdles we face when our own personal dreams get completely derailed. So keep that question in the back of your mind as we trace this journey.
All right, let's dive right into it. A champion's fall and the devastating setback.
Life rarely goes exactly according to plan, does it? During one particularly brutal winter, Thunder fell incredibly ill, and the contrast here is just massive. On one hand, you had the dreamer, fast, graceful, and destined for greatness. But then you have the tragic reality of the fallen, weak, struggling, and devastatingly mocked. This illness literally stripped him of his defining trait, his physical strength. Those powerful muscles that used to carry him effortlessly just seemed to vanish. He became so weak he could barely even stand up. The physical toll was horrible, but the psychological toll, arguably way worse. The other horses didn't rally around him. Instead, they whispered that his racing days were over. Some even pointed and laughed, saying, "He'll never run again." Imagine the crushing weight of hearing that when you're already at your absolute lowest point. It actually hurt him more than the illness itself.
Which brings us to the pivotal turning point: the wise mentor's advice and redefining the champion.
When you're sitting at rock bottom, stripped of everything that made you who you are, sometimes all it takes is a radical shift in perspective. Enter Spirit. He's this old, wise horse who visits Thunder in his darkest hour. And he doesn't offer magical healing or empty platitudes. He just completely challenges Thunder's worldview. He tells him, a true champion is the one who gets up after everyone believes he cannot. Just let that sink in for a second. That fundamentally redefines success. It strips away the need for natural talent or easy victories. It says true championship is about the absolute, unshakable grit to rise after a catastrophic fall, especially when the crowd has counted you out. And that exact wisdom, it's the spark that changes Thunder forever. He decides right then and there that he's going to fight back.
But hey, a mindset shift is only the very first step. Let's move to the next phase: the daily grind and the architecture of a comeback. Because the reality of recovery isn't magic. It is grueling, unglamorous, sweaty work. Thunder didn't just wake up the next day cured. He had to start from absolute zero. Step 1, 1 single minute. When he started, his legs trembled so violently he was exhausted after just 60 seconds, but he didn't quit. Step 2, that brutal 1 minute eventually became 5. Step 3, 5 minutes grew into 10. And finally, step 4, he built his endurance all the way up to a full hour. This is the perfect map of incremental progress. When you face a massive setback, you can't just jump straight back to peak performance. You have to endure the trembling legs. You have to start with 1 minute and literally fight for every single second after that.
And speaking of fighting for it, 0. That is the exact number of training days Thunder missed once he committed to rebuilding himself. 0. This wasn't about some fleeting burst of motivation. This was ironclad discipline. Every single sunrise, he trained harder. Even when it poured rain and everything was completely miserable, Thunder was out there. 0 missed days. That level of consistency is the absolute foundation of any real comeback.
But he wasn't just working blindly out there, you know? He was highly strategic. He intentionally used his harsh environment to his advantage. He tackled steep hills specifically to force his atrophied muscles to rebuild strength. He drove himself through thick, muddy paths to forge his cardiovascular endurance, and he navigated these treacherous, rocky trails just to master his physical balance. Every single piece of harsh terrain was used to craft a specific, highly adaptable skill for his return.
And all of that agonizing prep leads us to the climax, the ultimate comeback, and the true race.
Months pass, and the day of the Grand Valley horse race finally arrives. But as Thunder steps up to the starting line, the mockery begins all over again. The arrogant competitors look at him and laugh, whispering that he doesn't stand a chance. The starting signal fires. They all sprint forward like lightning. But surprisingly, Thunder stays behind. Why? Because he remembered Spirit's second piece of brilliant advice. Don't race against others, race against the horse you were yesterday. Thunder completely ignores the haters. He ignores their explosive early speed. He is operating entirely on intrinsic motivation and his own meticulously planned strategy. He just outright refuses to let their egos dictate his pace.
So at the start, he intentionally hangs back, pacing himself beautifully. By the halfway mark, that massive endurance he forged in the mud really begins to kick in. Slowly, he increases his speed. He passes one competitor, then another, and another. The crowd is in total disbelief. Entering the final stretch, Thunder summons absolutely every ounce of strength he earned on those steep hills. With one final, incredibly powerful burst of speed, he surges to the front and crosses the finish line. First place! The entire valley absolutely erupts, and those very horses who mocked him, they're left standing in complete, stunned silence.
Which brings us to the profound conclusion of our story, the true meaning of success and the bravest horse.
Thunder didn't win because he was naturally the fastest. He won because he endured the absolute worst life could throw at him and simply never gave up. Because of that, he wasn't just known as the fastest horse, he became known forever as the bravest. Let's distill this into our core takeaway for today. Success belongs to those who keep working, believing, and never quit, turning setbacks into a glorious comeback. This is what you really need to take away from this explainer. Success isn't reserved for people who never fail or never get knocked down. Life is going to hit you, it's going to strip your perceived strengths, and it might even leave you open to the laughter of others. But hard work, unending patience, and pure stubborn determination, those are the ultimate tools you use to write your own comeback story.
So as we wrap things up today, I want to leave you with one final, provocative question. Who are you racing against today? Are you letting the external noise, the doubts, and the pace of everybody else dictate your life? Or are you focused entirely on beating the person you were yesterday? Think deeply about that as you tackle your own goals and your own rocky trails this week. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and remember, keep running your own race.